The morning sun was bright over the city. People walked fast on the busy streets. Cars honked their horns. Everyone was in a hurry, but one woman walked slowly. She looked up at the tall building in front of her. Her heart was beating very fast. Maya was 34 years old. She had dark hair that she had tied back in a simple ponytail. She wore a white blouse that she had bought from a second-hand shop for $3. Her black pants were old but clean. Her shoes were flat and comfortable because she spent most of her days on her feet. Maya worked as a janitor at Mary's hospital. She cleaned floors. She emptied trash cans. She scrubbed toilets. Her hands were rough from years of hard work. Her back often hurt at the end of long shifts. She earned just enough money to pay her rent and buy food. Life was not easy for her. It had never been easy. But today was different. Today, Maya was not going to work. Today, she was standing in front of the conservatory. It was the most famous music school in the whole state. The building was huge and beautiful. It had tall white columns at the entrance. The walls were made of smooth stone. Through the large windows, Maya could see crystal chandeliers hanging from the ceiling. Everything looked expensive. Everything looked like it belonged to a different world. Maya took a deep breath. She looked down at the piece of paper in her hand. It was a flyer she had found at the library 2 months ago. The paper said, "Metropolitan Piano Championship open to all." Those 3 words had changed everything. Open to all. That meant anyone could enter. That meant even someone like her could try. She had thought about it for many days. She had almost thrown the flyer away many times. Who was she to enter a piano competition? She had no training. She had no degree. She had no fancy clothes or important connections. She was just a janitor who cleaned hospital floors. But something inside her would not let go. A small voice kept telling her to try. That voice sounded like her mother. Maya pushed open the heavy glass door and walked inside. The lobby was even more beautiful than she had imagined. The floor was made of shiny marble. Her old shoes made soft sounds as she walked. A large painting of a famous pianist hung on the wall. Fresh flowers sat in expensive vases. The air smelled clean and fresh, like money and success. Other people were already there. Maya looked at them and felt very small. A young man in an expensive suit talked loudly on his phone. He wore a gold watch that sparkled in the light. A teenage girl sat with her mother, both of them dressed in designer clothes. The girl looked bored, like she had been to 100 places like this before. Maya walked to the registration desk. A woman sat behind it. She had perfect makeup and a cold smile. She looked at Maya from head to toe. Her eyes stopped on Maya's old shoes and cheap blouse. "Can I help you?" the woman asked. Her voice was polite but not friendly. "I am here to register for the piano competition," Maya said. She tried to keep her voice steady. The woman raised one eyebrow. She looked at Maya again as if she had not heard correctly. "The Metropolitan Piano Championship," the woman asked slowly. "Yes," Maya said. "The flyer said it is open to all." The woman paused for a moment. Then she pushed a form across the desk. "Fill this out," she said. "You will need to pay the registration fee, $150. Maya's heart sank a little. $150 was a lot of money for her. It was almost a week's worth of groceries, but she had saved for this. She had eaten less and walked instead of taking the bus. She had put aside a little money each week for 2 months. She took out the cash from her bag and placed it on the desk. The woman counted it slowly, then handed Maya the form. Maya filled out the form carefully. Her hand shook a little as she wrote. Name, Maya, age 34, occupation, hospital janitor, musical training, none. She paused at this question. Then she wrote, self-taught, my mother's piano, 26 years of practice. She handed the form back to the woman. The woman read it and her eyebrows went up even higher. She looked at Maya with something like pity in her eyes. "You know," the woman said, leaning forward a little, "this is a very serious competition. Most of our contestants have studied at the best music schools. Many of them have been playing since they were 3 or 4 years old. Are you sure you want to do this?" Maya felt her face grow hot. She knew what the woman was really saying. She was saying that Maya did not belong here. She was saying that Maya was wasting everyone's time. But Maya thought of her mother. She thought of all those nights she had spent playing the piano until her fingers hurt. She thought of the music that lived inside her heart. "Yes," Maya said firmly, "I am sure." The woman shrugged and typed something into her computer. She handed Maya a piece of paper with a number on it. "You are contestant number 47, the woman said. "The competition is in 3 days. Be here at 8 in the morning. Do not be late." Maya took the paper, number 47. She folded it carefully and put it in her pocket. It felt like the most important thing she had ever owned. As she turned to leave, she noticed other contestants looking at her. A group of young people stood near the window. They were all dressed in nice clothes. They all looked confident and relaxed. One of them, a young man with curly hair, whispered something to his friend. They both laughed and looked at Maya. She knew they were laughing at her. She knew they thought she was a joke, a janitor at a piano competition. It was funny to them. It was impossible to them. Maya kept her head up and walked toward the door. She did not let them see how their laughter hurt her. She had faced harder things in her life than the judgment of strangers. Outside, the sun was still shining. The city was still busy and loud, but Maya felt different. She had taken the first step. She had registered for the competition. There was no going back now. She started walking home. It was a long walk, almost an hour, but she did not mind. She needed time to think. She needed time to prepare her heart for what was coming. 3 days. She had 3 days to get ready, 3 days to practice, 3 days to believe in herself. As she walked, Maya thought about her life. She thought about all the hard times she had been through. She thought about the nights when she had cried herself to sleep. She thought about the mornings when she did not want to get out of bed. But she also thought about the piano. She thought about how it felt when her fingers touched the keys. She thought about how the music filled the empty spaces inside her. She thought about how, for a few hours each night, she could forget all her problems and just play. The piano had saved her life many times. It had been her friend when she had no friends. It had been her comfort when she had no comfort. It had been the one thing that made her feel alive. Now it was time to share that music with the world, even if the world did not want to listen, even if everyone laughed at her, even if she failed. Maya touched the paper in her pocket. Number 47. In 3 days she would walk onto that stage. In 3 days she would sit at a piano in front of strangers. In 3 days she would show them who she really was. The crowd thought it would be simple. They thought they knew what to expect. They thought a janitor with no training could never surprise them. They were all about to be proven wrong. The waiting room at the conservatory was filled with people. It was the day of the competition. Maya had arrived early, just as they had told her. She sat in a corner, away from the others. Her hands were folded in her lap. She tried to stay calm, but her heart was racing. The room was big and fancy. Soft chairs lined the walls. A large mirror hung on one side. Through the windows, Maya could see a beautiful garden outside. Everything was clean and perfect. Everything made her feel like she did not belong. Around her, other contestants talked and laughed. They all seemed to know each other. They hugged and shook hands. They compared notes about their teachers and their schools. Maya heard words like and Royal Academy. These were famous music schools, the best in the world. Maya had never been to any school for music. She had learned everything by herself. She had learned from watching videos on the internet. She had learned from books she borrowed from the library. She had learned from listening to recordings of great pianists over and over again. But most of all, she had learned from her mother. A woman in a red dress walked past Maya. She was talking to another woman in expensive jewelry. Maya heard their conversation clearly. "Did you see the list of contestants?" the woman in red said. "Some of them are quite impressive. The young boy from New York has already played at Carnegie Hall." "I heard about him," the other woman replied. "But what about that janitor? Can you believe they let her in?" The woman in red laughed. "I know, I saw her application. She works at a hospital cleaning floors. She has no training at all. It is embarrassing, really. These open competitions let anyone in these days." Maya felt her face grow hot. She looked down at her hands. They were rough and dry from years of cleaning. They did not look like the hands of a pianist. They looked like the hands of a worker. For a moment, she wanted to leave. She wanted to stand up and walk out the door. She wanted to go back to her small apartment and forget this whole thing. What was she thinking? She did not belong here with these people. But then she took a deep breath. She remembered why she was here. She was not here to impress anyone. She was not here to prove anything to these strangers. She was here because of her mother. She was here because of the music. A young man walked toward her. He was tall and thin with dark curly hair. He wore a blue jacket with a pin on it. The pin said School of Music. He looked confident and relaxed, like he owned the place. "First time at a competition?" he asked Maya. His voice was friendly, but his eyes were looking at her cheap clothes. "Yes," Maya said quietly. "I could tell," he said with a small smile. "You look nervous. Do not worry, it will be over soon." Maya did not know what to say. She just nodded. The young man looked at the paper in her hand. It had her contestant number on it. "Number 47, he said. "That means you play near the end. That is actually good. The judges are usually more awake by then." He laughed at his own joke. Maya did not laugh. "So where did you study?" he asked. "I did not study anywhere," Maya said. "I taught myself." The young man's eyebrows went up. He looked at her differently now. There was surprise in his eyes and something else. Maybe pity, maybe amusement. "Self-taught," he repeated. "That is interesting. Well, good luck. You will need it." He walked away to join his friends. Maya heard them talking in low voices. She heard more laughter. She knew they were talking about her. She tried not to care. She tried to focus on the music in her head. She closed her eyes and imagined the piano. She imagined her fingers on the keys. She imagined the sound of each note. The door to the main hall opened. A woman with a clipboard came out. She was the coordinator of the competition. She called out the first few numbers. "Numbers 1 through 5, please come with me. You will warm up in the practice room before your performance." 5 people stood up and followed her. They all looked calm and confident. They had done this many times before. Maya watched them go. She still had a long time to wait. She was number 47. There were many people before her. As the morning went on, more and more contestants went to perform. Some of them came back to the waiting room looking happy. Others looked disappointed. One young girl came back crying. Her mother hugged her and whispered comforting words. Maya watched all of this. She saw the pressure. She saw the stress. She saw how much this competition meant to everyone. But she also saw something else. She saw how different she was from all of them. They had spent their whole lives preparing for this. They had expensive teachers and fancy schools. They had parents who supported them and paid for everything. Maya had none of that. She had worked since she was 15 years old. She had cleaned houses and offices. She had served food in restaurants. She had done every kind of job just to survive. Music was not her career. Music was her escape. Every night after her shift at the hospital ended, Maya would go home to her small apartment. She would eat a simple dinner. Then she would go down to the basement of her building. That was where she kept her piano. It was an old upright piano that had belonged to her mother. It was not beautiful or expensive. The wood was scratched. Some of the keys were yellow with age. But to Maya, it was the most precious thing in the world. She would play for hours in that basement, sometimes until midnight, sometimes until 2 or 3 in the morning. The neighbors never complained. In fact, some of them would sit in the stairwell just to listen. They said her music made them feel peaceful. They said it helped them sleep. Maya thought about this as she sat in the waiting room. She thought about all those nights in the basement. She thought about all the tears she had cried while playing. She thought about all the pain and joy she had put into her music. These other contestants had training. They had technique. They had everything that money could buy. But did they have what Maya had? Did they have 26 years of playing with their whole heart? Did they have a mother who taught them that music was not about being perfect, but about being true? Maya did not know. She only knew that she had to try. The coordinator came back to the waiting room. "Numbers 40 through 50, please come with me," she said. Maya's heart jumped. It was almost her turn. She stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. Her hands were shaking. She followed the coordinator down a long hallway. The walls were covered with pictures of famous musicians who had performed here over the years. Their faces looked serious and important. Maya wondered if her picture would ever be on this wall. She almost laughed at the thought. Of course not. She was just a janitor. The practice room was small but nice. There was a piano in the corner. Maya sat down at it and placed her fingers on the keys. She played a few notes softly. The piano was beautiful. The sound was rich and clear, much better than her old piano at home. She closed her eyes and let her fingers move. She did not play anything complicated, just simple scales to warm up, but even these simple notes felt special. They felt like a promise of what was to come. In the next room she could hear another contestant playing. The music was fast and complicated. It sounded perfect. Every note was exactly right. Maya knew she could not compete with that kind of perfection, but she was not trying to be perfect. She was trying to be honest. She was trying to share something real. The coordinator came to the door. "Number 47, she said. "You are next. Please follow me." Maya stood up. She looked at her reflection in the small mirror on the wall. She saw a tired woman with rough hands and simple clothes. She did not look like a pianist. She looked like exactly what she was, a janitor who worked double shifts to pay her bills. But behind those tired eyes there was something else. There was fire. There was determination. There was 26 years of love for music. Maya followed the coordinator toward the stage. The crowd was waiting. The judges were waiting. They all expected something simple from her. They all expected her to fail. They had no idea what was coming. To understand Maya, you must first understand her mother. Came to America when she was just 22 years old. She came from a small village in Vietnam. She had nothing when she arrived, just one small bag of clothes and a dream in her heart. In Vietnam had been a piano teacher. She was not famous, but she was good, very good. Her students loved her. They said she had a special way of teaching. She did not just teach them to play notes. She taught them to feel the music. She taught them to put their hearts into every song. Had dreams of becoming a concert pianist. She wanted to play on big stages. She wanted to travel the world and share her music, but life had other plans for her. War came to her country. Her village was destroyed. Her family lost everything, was lucky to escape with her life. She spent months in a refugee camp before finally getting permission to come to America. When she arrived, she had to start from nothing. She did not speak English well. She had no money. She had no friends. The only job she could find was working in a factory. She worked long hours for little pay. Her hands, which had once danced on piano keys, now put together small parts of machines. But never gave up on music. She saved every penny she could. After 2 years of working in the factory, she had enough money to buy a used piano. It was old and scratched. Some of the keys stuck, but it was beautiful. She put the piano in her small one-bedroom apartment. It took up almost half the living room. There was barely room to walk around it, but did not care. Every night after work, she would sit at that piano and play. The music helped her forget her pain. It helped her remember who she really was. When she was 30 years old, she met a man named David. He was a kind man who worked as a cook in a small restaurant. They fell in love and got married. A year later, they had a baby girl. They named her Maya. Maya grew up listening to her mother play the piano. It was the first sound she knew. Before she could walk, she would crawl to the piano and touch the keys, would laugh and put Maya on her lap. Together, they would make music. When Maya was 4 years old, started teaching her to play. She was patient and gentle. She never yelled or got angry. She always said the same thing: music is not about being perfect. Music is about being true. Play with your heart and people will listen. Maya loved learning from her mother. She loved the way his hands moved over the keys. She loved the sounds they made together. She loved the stories her mother told her about each piece of music. "This song is about a river," would say. "Close your eyes and imagine the water flowing. Feel it in your fingers." Or she would say, "This song is about saying goodbye to someone you love. Think about someone you miss. Let that feeling come out through the music." Maya learned quickly. By the time she was 8, she could play songs that most children could not play until they were teenagers. Her mother was proud, but she did not push Maya too hard. She let Maya learn at her own pace. She let Maya find her own way. Those were happy years. The three of them lived in that small apartment. They did not have much money, but they had love. They had music. They had each other. But happiness does not last forever. When Maya was 12 years old, her father got very sick. He had cancer. The doctors said there was nothing they could do. He died 3 months later. Maya and her mother were alone. Worked even harder after that. She took extra shifts at the factory. She was tired all the time, but every night she still found time to play the piano with Maya. "Music is how we keep going," she told her daughter. "When everything else is hard, music gives us strength." Then when Maya was 15, something terrible happened. Started feeling sick. She was tired all the time. She lost weight. She could not eat. Maya begged her to see a doctor but kept saying she was fine. Finally, she went to the hospital. The doctors did tests. The news was bad. Had the same kind of cancer that had killed her husband. It had already spread too far. There was nothing they could do. Lived for 6 more months. Those were the hardest months of Maya's life. She watched her mother get weaker and weaker. She watched the light in her mother's eyes slowly fade. But even in those dark days, still played the piano when she could. Even when her fingers were too weak to press the keys, she would sit and listen to Maya play. One night near the end, called Maya to her bed. She could barely speak. Her voice was soft and tired. "Maya," she said, "promise me something." "Anything," Maya said, holding her mother's hand. "Promise me you will keep playing. Promise me you will never give up on music. It does not matter if you become famous. It does not matter if anyone ever hears you. Just keep playing. The music is inside you. Let it out." Maya was crying too hard to speak. She just nodded. "And one more thing," said. "Remember what I taught you. Music is not about being perfect. Music is about being true. When you play, play with your whole heart. That is all that matters." Died the next morning. She was only 47 years old, the same age that was now on Maya's contestant number. After her mother died, Maya was completely alone. She was 15 years old with no parents and no family. The government wanted to put her in a foster home, but Maya refused. She lied about her age and got a job. She dropped out of school. She worked during the day and played the piano at night. Life was very hard. There were days when Maya did not have enough money to eat. There were nights when she cried herself to sleep. There were times when she wanted to give up. But she always remembered her mother's words. She always remembered her promise. So she kept playing, night after night, year after year. She moved to a small apartment building downtown. The landlord let her keep her mother's piano in the basement. Every night after work, Maya would go down to that basement and play for hours. The music was her only friend. The music was her only comfort. The neighbors started to notice. They would hear the beautiful music coming from below. Some of them would sit in the stairwell and listen. An old man named Mr. Johnson lived on the first floor. He told Maya that her music helped him sleep. A young mother named Sarah said the music calmed her crying baby. Maya did not play for them. She played for herself. She played for her mother, but knowing that others found comfort in her music made her feel less alone. For 19 years, this was Maya's life. Work during the day, play at night. No training, no teachers, no competitions, just her and the piano in that cold basement. But deep inside, Maya always wondered. She wondered if she was any good. She wondered if her mother would be proud. She wondered if her music could touch people beyond the neighbors in her building. Then she found that flyer at the library. Metropolitan Piano Championship open to all. And for the first time in 19 years, Maya decided to find out. Now she stood backstage, waiting for her name to be called. The crowd did not know her story. They did not know about the basement. They did not know about the 19 years of playing in the dark. They only saw a janitor with no training. They had no idea what they were about to hear. The stage lights were bright, so bright that Maya could barely see the audience, but she could hear them. She could hear the soft whispers. She could hear people moving in their seats. She could feel their eyes on her. The announcer had just called her number, contestant number 47, Maya. Maya walked slowly onto the stage. Her old shoes made soft sounds on the wooden floor. She kept her head up and her shoulders straight, just like her mother had taught her. Walk with pride, always said. Even when you are scared, walk like you belong. The piano was in the middle of the stage. It was a grand piano. Maya had seen pictures of pianos like this in magazines, but she had never played one. It was huge and shiny and black. It probably cost more money than Maya would earn in her entire life. The audience watched her walk toward it. Maya could feel their judgment. She knew what they saw. They saw a woman in cheap clothes. They saw rough hands. They saw someone who did not fit in. In the front row, the judges sat at a long table. There were 5 of them. They had papers and pens in front of them. They looked serious and important. The head judge was a man named Dr. William. Maya had read about him in the library. He was famous. He had played piano at the biggest concert halls in the world. He had taught at the best music schools. He had judged hundreds of competitions. Doctor looked at Maya with tired eyes. He had been listening to contestants all day. Many of them were very good. Some of them were excellent. He expected nothing special from this one. Her application said she was a janitor with no training, just another amateur who thought she could play. Maya reached the piano. She stood beside it for a moment. She looked at the keys. They were white and clean and perfect, so different from the yellow keys on her mother's old piano. She pulled out the bench and sat down. The bench was smooth under her. She adjusted her position until she felt comfortable. Then she placed her hands on her lap and took a deep breath. The audience was still whispering. She could hear pieces of their conversations. This should be quick. I wonder how bad it will be. Poor thing, she does not know what she is getting into. Maya closed her eyes. She tried to block out the voices. She tried to forget where she was. She tried to go back to the basement, back to the cold nights, back to the music that had kept her alive. She thought about her mother. She imagined sitting beside her like she used to when Maya was a child. She could almost feel her mother's hand on her shoulder. She could almost hear her mother's voice. Play with your heart, Maya. That is all that matters. Maya opened her eyes. She looked at the keys. She placed her fingers on them gently. They felt cool and smooth under her rough skin. She had chosen to play Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor. It was a famous piece, a difficult piece. Many great pianists had played it before. Some people in the audience probably knew it by heart. But Maya was not going to play it like anyone else. She was going to play it her way, the way she had learned in the basement, the way her mother had taught her. The auditorium fell silent. Everyone was waiting. The judges had their pens ready. The other contestants backstage were watching on a small screen. Maya took one last breath, then she began to play. The first notes came out soft and slow. They floated through the air like leaves falling from a tree. Maya's fingers moved gently over the keys. She was not thinking about technique. She was not thinking about the judges. She was just feeling the music. The melody was sad and beautiful. It was a song about longing, about wanting something you cannot have, about remembering something you have lost. Maya thought about her mother as she played. She thought about the last night they spent together. She thought about his hand in hers, so thin and weak. She thought about the promise she had made. The music grew stronger. Maya's fingers moved faster. The notes became louder, more urgent. There was pain in the music now, real pain, the kind of pain that does not go away. Something in the audience shifted. The whispers stopped completely. People who had been looking at their phones put them down. People who had been thinking about other things suddenly focused on the stage. Doctor, the head judge, sat up in his chair. His tired eyes were not tired anymore. He was watching Maya with complete attention. His pen lay forgotten on the table. Maya did not notice any of this. She was lost in the music. She was back in the basement, playing at midnight while the rest of the world slept. She was back in her mother's arms, learning to feel each note. She was everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Her fingers flew over the keys. The music grew and grew like a wave building in the ocean. It was powerful and wild and full of emotion, but it was also controlled. Every note was exactly where it should be. Every phrase had meaning. Every moment had purpose. This was not the playing of an amateur. This was not the playing of a janitor who had never been trained. This was something else entirely. This was the playing of someone who had given her whole life to music. The middle section of the ballade was fast and complicated. Many pianists struggled with it, but Maya's fingers moved through it like water flowing over stones. She did not stumble. She did not hesitate. She played with a confidence that surprised even herself. In the audience, something was happening. People were leaning forward in their seats. Some of them had tears in their eyes. They did not know why. They did not understand. But the music was touching something deep inside them. The woman in the red dress, the one who had laughed about letting anyone in, was crying silently. She had been to hundreds of concerts. She had heard the best pianists in the world. But something about this was different. Something about this felt real. The young man stood backstage with his mouth open. He could not believe what he was hearing. He had studied for years. He had practiced for thousands of hours. But this woman, this janitor, was playing with something he had never been able to find. She was playing with her soul. Maya reached the climax of the piece. The music was loud and passionate now. Her fingers were moving so fast they were almost a blur. The piano seemed to come alive under her hands. It was not just an instrument anymore. It was an extension of her body. It was speaking for her. It was telling her story. All those years of pain, all those nights of loneliness, all those tears she had cried in the dark, it all came pouring out through the music. Every note was a word she had never been able to say. Every chord was an emotion she had kept locked inside. The audience was completely still. No one moved, no one breathed. They were caught in the spell of the music. They were living Maya's life through her playing. They felt her pain. They felt her love. They felt her strength. Finally, the piece began to slow down. The storm was passing. The music became soft again. Maya played the final notes with her eyes closed. Each one was gentle and clear, like stars appearing after a dark night. The last note faded away into silence. Maya lifted her hands from the keys. She kept her eyes closed for a moment longer. She was not ready to come back to the real world. She wanted to stay in the music just a little longer. Then she opened her eyes. The audience was frozen. No one was moving. No one was speaking. For a terrible moment, Maya thought she had failed. She thought she had made a mistake. She thought they hated her. Then slowly, Doctor stood up. He started to clap. The sound of Doctor clapping echoed through the silent auditorium. It was a strange sound at first, one pair of hands making noise in a room full of quiet people. Then another person stood up, and another, and another. Within seconds, the entire audience was on their feet. The clapping grew louder and louder until it filled the whole room. People were cheering. People were shouting. Some people were crying. The sound was like thunder, like a waterfall, like something alive. Maya sat at the piano, frozen. She did not understand what was happening. Were they clapping for her? Were these the same people who had laughed at her? Were these the same people who had whispered that she did not belong? She looked at the judges' table. All 5 judges were standing. Doctor was clapping harder than anyone. His eyes were wet with tears. He was not trying to hide them. He was looking at Maya like she was something precious, something rare. The applause went on and on. 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes. Maya lost count. She sat at the piano bench, her hands in her lap, not knowing what to do. She had never experienced anything like this. In the basement, there was only silence after she played. Sometimes a neighbor would knock on the door and say thank you, but this was different. This was overwhelming. Finally, after what felt like forever, the clapping began to slow down. People sat back in their seats, but they were different now. The whole room felt different. The coldness was gone. The judgment was gone. Something new had taken its place. Doctor wiped his eyes and sat down. He looked at Maya for a long moment. Then he picked up his microphone. "Thank you, miss," he said. His voice was not steady, it shook a little. That was extraordinary. Maya did not know what to say. She nodded and stood up slowly. Her legs felt weak. She was shaking all over. She walked toward the side of the stage, toward the exit. Her heart was pounding so hard she could feel it in her ears. Backstage, the other contestants were waiting. They looked at her differently now. The young man was staring at her with his mouth open. The girl in the designer dress had tears running down her cheeks. Even the woman who had whispered about letting anyone in was looking at Maya with new respect in her eyes. Maya walked past them all. She found a quiet corner and sat down on a plastic chair. Her whole body was shaking. She did not know if she was going to laugh or cry. Maybe both. A staff member brought her a cup of water. "That was beautiful," she said softly. "I have been working at these competitions for 15 years. I have never heard anything like that." Maya took the water with trembling hands. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice did not sound like her own. She sat there for a long time. She could hear other contestants going on stage and playing. Some of them were very good. Some of them were technical perfection. But Maya was not really listening. She was still lost in what had just happened. The young man came over to her. He stood in front of her for a moment, not speaking. Then he sat down in the chair next to her. "Where did you learn to play like that?" he asked. His voice was quiet. The arrogance was gone. He sounded almost like a child. Maya looked at him. She thought about how to answer. She could tell him about the basement. She could tell him about her mother. She could tell him about the 19 years of playing in the dark. But she did not think he would understand. "My mother taught me," she said simply, "a long time ago." "She must have been an amazing teacher," he said. Maya felt tears come to her eyes. She was the best. The young man nodded slowly. "I have studied with the best teachers in the world," he said. "I have practiced 8 hours a day since I was 5 years old, but I cannot play like you. There is something in your playing that I do not have. I do not know what it is." Maya thought about this. She knew what he was missing. Her mother had told her about it many times. "My mother used to say that music is not about being perfect," Maya said. "It is about being true. When you play, you have to put your whole heart into it, all your joy, all your pain, all your love. Everything you are has to come out through the music." The young man looked at her for a long time. Then he nodded slowly. "I think I understand," he said, "but I do not know if I can do it. I have spent so long trying to be perfect. I do not know how to be anything else." Maya reached out and touched his hand. It was a small gesture, but it felt right. "You can learn," she said. "It is never too late to learn." He smiled at her. It was a real smile, not the fake smile he had given her before. Then he stood up and walked away. Maya sat alone again. She looked at her hands. They were still rough and calloused. They were still the hands of a janitor, but now they were something else too. They were the hands of a pianist who had made an entire audience cry. The competition continued for the rest of the day. More contestants played. Some were good. Some were not so good, but Maya did not really pay attention. She was too tired, too overwhelmed, too full of emotion. When all the contestants had played, the judges went to a private room to discuss. The audience was told to wait. Some people left to get food. Some people stayed in their seats. Maya stayed backstage, still sitting in her plastic chair. Hours passed. The sun went down outside the windows. The building grew quiet. Maya watched the shadows grow longer on the floor. She thought about her mother. She thought about the basement. She thought about all the years she had spent alone with her music. She had not expected to win. She had not even expected to do well. She had just wanted to play. She had just wanted to keep her promise to her mother. She had just wanted to share her music with someone other than her neighbors. But now something had changed. The way the audience had reacted, the way the judges had looked at her, the way the young man had spoken to her, something had shifted in the world. Maya did not know what would happen next. She did not know what the judges would decide. But for the first time in a long time, she felt something she had almost forgotten how to feel. She felt hope. A staff member came to tell the contestants that the judges were ready. Everyone gathered in the main hall. The lights were bright again. The audience was back in their seats. The excitement in the air was thick enough to touch. Maya stood with the other contestants. She was near the back, hidden behind taller people. She was still wearing her cheap blouse and old shoes. She still looked like a janitor, but something about her was different now. There was a light in her eyes that had not been there before. Doctor walked onto the stage. He was holding an envelope. The room fell completely silent. "This has been an extraordinary competition," he said. His voice echoed through the hall. "We have heard many talented pianists today. The level of skill has been very high." He paused and looked at the envelope in his hands. But one performance stood out above all the others. One performance was so remarkable, so moving, so unforgettable that we had no difficulty choosing our winner. Maya's heart was pounding again. She could barely breathe. Beside her, the young man crossed his fingers. Doctor opened the envelope. "For the first time in the 40-year history of the Metropolitan Piano Championship," he said, "we have a unanimous decision. All 5 judges gave the same score, a perfect score." The audience gasped. A perfect score. It had never happened before. Doctor looked up from the envelope. His eyes searched the crowd of contestants. They found Maya standing in the back trying to hide. He smiled. "The winner is contestant number 47, Maya." The room exploded with noise. People were cheering, clapping, standing up from their seats. The sound was even louder than before, if that was possible. It filled every corner of the auditorium and spilled out into the halls. Maya stood frozen among the other contestants. She could not move, she could not breathe. She had heard the words, but they did not make sense. Her name, the winner, a perfect score. It was like a dream, a strange, impossible dream. Someone pushed her forward. It was the young man he was smiling at her, a real genuine smile. "Go," he said, "they are waiting for you." Maya's legs moved on their own. She walked through the crowd of contestants. Some of them patted her shoulder as she passed. Some of them said congratulations. Their faces blurred together. She could not focus on anything. She walked onto the stage. The lights were blinding. The cheering was deafening. Doctor was waiting for her with the envelope in his hands and a trophy beside him. The trophy was tall and golden, with a tiny piano on top. Maya reached the center of the stage. She stood in front of Doctor, not knowing what to do with her hands. She felt small and out of place, like a child who had wandered into a party for adults. Doctor held up his hand. Slowly, the audience quieted down. People sat back in their seats. The cheering became soft applause, then silence. "Miss," Doctor said into the microphone. His voice was warm and full of emotion. "I have been judging piano competitions for 30 years. I have heard thousands of pianists. I have listened to the best in the world." He paused and looked at Maya with those tired eyes that were not tired anymore. "In all those years," he continued, "I have never heard anyone play the way you played today. Your technique was excellent, yes. Your control was remarkable, but that is not what made your performance special." He took a deep breath. What made your performance special was the truth in it. You were not just playing notes. You were telling a story. You were sharing something real, something from deep inside your heart. I do not know what you have been through in your life. I do not know what pain you carry, but I heard it in your music. We all heard it. Maya felt tears running down her cheeks. She did not try to stop them. "This trophy is yours," Doctor said. He picked up the golden trophy and held it out to her. "But more importantly, you have earned the respect and admiration of everyone in this room. Congratulations, miss. You deserve this." Maya took the trophy. It was heavier than she expected. The gold was cold against her rough hands. She held it close to her chest, like it might disappear if she let go. Doctor handed her the microphone. "Would you like to say a few words?" Maya looked at the microphone. She looked at the audience. Hundreds of faces stared back at her. Some were smiling, some were crying, all of them were waiting. She had never been good with words. She had spent most of her life alone, talking to no one except herself and her piano. But she knew she had to say something. She lifted the microphone to her lips. Her hand was shaking. "Thank you," she said. Her voice was soft and unsteady. "I do not really know what to say. I never expected this. I never expected any of this." She paused and looked at the trophy in her hand. "When I was a little girl, my mother taught me to play the piano. She came to this country with nothing. She worked in a factory during the day, but every night she would play the piano and teach me. She always said that music was not about being perfect. It was about being true." The audience was completely silent. Every eye was on Maya. "My mother died when I was 15. She had cancer. Before she died, she made me promise that I would keep playing. She made me promise that I would never give up on music." Maya's voice broke. She had to stop and take a breath. "For 19 years, I have played the piano every night, in the basement of my apartment building, alone. No one taught me after my mother died. No one helped me. I just kept playing, because I promised her, because the music was the only thing that kept me alive." Tears were flowing freely down her face now, but she kept talking. "I work as a janitor at a hospital. I clean floors. I empty trash cans. My hands are rough and my clothes are cheap. When I walked into this building 3 days ago, people looked at me like I did not belong. And maybe they were right. Maybe I do not belong in a place like this." She looked up at the audience. Her eyes were wet but clear. "But my mother taught me that music does not care where you come from. Music does not care if you are rich or poor. Music does not care if you went to a fancy school or taught yourself in a basement. Music only cares that you play with your whole heart, that you are honest, that you are true." The audience was crying. Not just a few people, but almost everyone, even the judges, even the security guards standing by the doors. "So I want to thank my mother," Maya said. "I wish she could be here. I wish she could see this. But I believe she is watching from somewhere, and I hope I made her proud." She lowered the microphone. She had nothing more to say. The audience rose to their feet again. The applause was thunderous. People were cheering her name. "Maya, Maya, Maya." The sound echoed off the walls and ceiling like a living thing. Maya stood on the stage holding her trophy, crying and smiling at the same time. She did not know how long the applause lasted. It might have been minutes, it might have been hours. Time had stopped making sense. Finally, Doctor stepped forward and took the microphone. "In addition to this trophy," he said, "Miss has also won a full scholarship to any music program in the country. She has won a cash prize of $50,000. And most importantly, she has won the opportunity to perform at Lincoln Center in New York City." The audience cheered again. Lincoln Center. It was one of the most famous concert halls in the world. Maya's mother had dreamed of playing there. Now Maya would play there for her. After the ceremony, people surrounded Maya. Reporters with cameras and microphones pushed toward her. Photographers asked her to pose with her trophy. Other contestants came to shake her hand and congratulate her. The young man found her in the crowd. "You were amazing," he said. "I learned something today, something important." "What did you learn?" Maya asked. He smiled. "That there is more to music than technique. You taught me that, thank you." A reporter pushed between them with a microphone. Miss, how does it feel to go from janitor to champion?" Maya looked at the reporter. She thought about the question. "I do not think anything has changed," she said. "I am still the same person I was this morning. I still work at the hospital. I still live in the same apartment. I still play the same piano my mother left me." "But you just won the biggest piano competition in the country," the reporter said. Maya nodded slowly. "Yes, but that is not why I play. I did not play today to win. I played because I love music. I played because my mother taught me to love music. Winning is nice, but the music is what matters." The reporter looked confused. Maya did not try to explain further. Some things could not be explained with words. Some things could only be understood through music. As the crowd slowly thinned out, Maya found a quiet corner. She sat down with her trophy and looked at it for a long time. The golden surface reflected the lights above. "I did it, Mother," she whispered. "I kept my promise." Somewhere in her heart, she felt her mother's smile. The next morning, Maya woke up in her small apartment. For a moment, she forgot what had happened. She thought it was a regular day. She thought she had to go to work at the hospital. Then she saw the trophy sitting on her kitchen table. The gold caught the morning light and sparkled. It was real. It had all really happened. Maya got out of bed and walked to the table. She touched the trophy gently as if it might break. It was still cold, still heavy, still there. Her phone started ringing. It had been ringing all night. She had turned it off at some point because she could not sleep with all the noise. Now she turned it back on and the messages flooded in. Missed calls 47. Text messages 112. Voicemails 23. Maya stared at the numbers. She had never received this many calls in her entire life. She did not even know this many people. She scrolled through the messages. Some were from reporters. Some were from television stations. Some were from phone numbers she did not recognize. And some were from her neighbors in the apartment building. "Mr. Johnson, the old man from the first floor. Maya, I saw you on the news. I am so proud of you. I always knew you were special." Sarah, the young mother from the third floor. "Maya, my husband and I were crying watching you play. You are amazing." Even her boss from the hospital had called. "Take the week off. You deserve it, and congratulations." Maya did not know what to do with all of this. She was not used to attention. She was not used to people caring about her. For so many years, she had been invisible. A janitor that people walked past without seeing. A quiet woman who lived alone and played piano in a basement. Now suddenly, the whole world wanted to talk to her. She took a shower and got dressed. She put on her regular clothes, the same old pants and simple shirt she always wore. She made herself a cup of coffee and sat by the window. Outside, she could see a news van parked on the street. A reporter was standing in front of the camera, probably talking about her. Maya watched from behind the curtain, not wanting to be seen. Her phone rang again. This time she looked at the number. She did not recognize it, but something told her to answer. "Hello, Miss, this is Dr. William from the competition." Maya almost dropped the phone. Doctor, the head judge, the famous pianist who had played at Carnegie Hall. "Doctor," she said, "hello. I hope I am not disturbing you," he said. His voice was warm and kind. "I wanted to call and talk to you personally about your future." Maya did not understand. "My future?" "Yes, you have a gift, miss, a rare and precious gift. The scholarship you won will open many doors for you. The best music schools in the country would be honored to have you. You could study with the greatest teachers in the world." Maya thought about this. A music school, teachers, a real education. It was everything her mother had wanted for herself and never got. "But," Doctor continued, "I want you to know something. You do not need to study. Your playing is already extraordinary. What you have cannot be taught. You learned it yourself from your heart. No school can give you what you already have." Maya was surprised. "Then why are you calling?" Doctor laughed softly. "Because I want to know what you plan to do with the prize money, with the scholarship, with this opportunity. The world is watching you now, miss. What do you want to do with that?" Maya was quiet for a long time. She had not thought about this. She had not planned for any of this. She had just wanted to play. "I do not know," she said honestly. "I have not had time to think." "That is understandable," Doctor said. "Take your time. But when you decide, I would like to help you if I can. You have inspired a lot of people, including me." They talked for a few more minutes. Doctor told her about the Lincoln Center performance. It would be in 6 months. She could choose any piece she wanted to play. He gave her his personal phone number and told her to call any time. After they hung up, Maya sat in silence for a long time. She looked around her small apartment. The peeling paint on the walls, the cracked tiles on the floor, the old furniture she had found at thrift stores. This was her life, this small, quiet life, working at the hospital, playing in the basement, eating simple meals alone. But now everything could change. She had money, she had opportunity, she could go anywhere, do anything. What did she want? Maya closed her eyes and thought about her mother. She thought about coming to America with nothing, working in a factory, saving money for years to buy a used piano, teaching her daughter to play in a tiny apartment. What would her mother want for her? Maya knew the answer. Her mother would want her to share her music, not just with the neighbors in the stairwell, but with the world. Her mother would want her to use this gift to help others. An idea began to form in Maya's mind. It was a small idea at first, just a seed, but it grew quickly. She did not want to go to music school. She did not want to study with famous teachers. She already knew how to play. What she needed was a purpose, a reason to keep going. And she knew what that purpose was. Maya picked up her phone and called Doctor back. "Miss," he answered, "did you think of something?" "Yes," Maya said. "I know what I want to do. I want to open a music school, not a fancy school, a free school, for children who cannot afford lessons, for children like I was who have nothing but a dream." There was silence on the other end of the phone. "That is a beautiful idea," Doctor said finally. His voice was thick with emotion. "Tell me more." Maya talked for a long time. She told him about growing up poor, about her mother's dreams, about learning to play on an old piano in a one-bedroom apartment. She told him that there were thousands of children out there just like her, children with talent and passion but no money for lessons. "The scholarship money can help me get started," she said. "The prize money can pay for the first year. I do not need much, just a space to teach, some pianos, and children who want to learn." Doctor was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that surprised Maya. "I want to help you," he said. "Not just with advice. I want to be part of this. I have connections. I know people who would be happy to donate pianos to help find a space to support this idea. Let me help you make it happen." Maya felt tears in her eyes. "Why?" she asked. "Why would you do this for me?" Doctor sighed. "Because yesterday you reminded me why I fell in love with music. I have spent 30 years in concert halls and music schools, surrounded by technique and perfection. But you showed me something I had forgotten. You showed me that music is about the heart, and I want to help you share that with the next generation." Maya thanked him. She thanked him over and over until she was crying too hard to speak. After the call, she went to the window again. The news van was still there. The reporter was still talking. The world was still watching. But Maya was not scared anymore. She knew what she wanted to do. She knew why she had won. It was not for herself. It was for all the children who were like she had been, alone and poor and dreaming of something better. She would give them what her mother had given her: a chance, a hope, a reason to believe that music could save their lives just as it had saved hers. 6 months passed faster than Maya could have imagined. The small building on Oak Street had been an old community center. The walls were cracked. The roof leaked in 2 places. The windows were dirty and some of the lights did not work. But to Maya, it was perfect. She stood in the main room, looking around at what she had built. 25 pianos sat in neat rows. Some were new, donated by music stores that had heard her story. Some were old, given by families who no longer used them. All of them were tuned and ready to play. The sign above the door said "Keys" in beautiful gold letters, named after her mother. Maya had painted it herself. Today was opening day. In 1 hour, the first students would arrive. Children from her old neighborhood. Children who came from poor families. Children who had never touched a piano before. Maya walked to the corner of the room where an old upright piano sat. It was scratched and worn. Some of the keys were yellow with age. The wood had seen better days. It was her mother's piano, the same piano that had saved for years to buy, the same piano that Maya had learned on as a child, the same piano that had kept her company in the basement for 19 years. She had brought it here to the school. It belonged here now. Maya sat down at the old piano and played a few notes. The sound was familiar and comforting. It was not as bright as the new pianos. It was not as perfect, but it had soul. It had history. It had love. The door opened behind her. Maya turned to see Doctor walking in. He was smiling widely. "The place looks wonderful," he said. "Your mother would be so proud." Over the past 6 months, Doctor had become more than a mentor to Maya. He had become a friend. He had helped her find this building. He had convinced music stores to donate pianos. He had connected her with other musicians who wanted to volunteer as teachers. Without him, none of this would have been possible. "I am nervous," Maya admitted. "What if I am not a good teacher? What if the children do not like me?" Doctor laughed. "You will be a wonderful teacher. You have something that cannot be taught. You have heart, and children respond to that." The door opened again. This time it was Mr. Johnson, the old man from Maya's apartment building. He was carrying a plate of cookies. "For the students," he said with a smile. "I figured they might be hungry." Behind him came Sarah, the young mother, with her husband and their baby. They had come to help decorate the room with balloons and streamers. More and more people arrived. Neighbors from Maya's building, colleagues from the hospital who had heard about her school, even some of the contestants from the competition who had reached out to wish her well. Maya looked at all these people. 6 months ago, she had been alone. She had worked in silence and played in darkness. She had thought no one cared about her. Now she understood how wrong she had been. People had always cared. She had just been too closed off to see it. At exactly 10 o'clock, the first students arrived. 12 children, ages 6 to 14. They came with their parents, looking nervous and excited. Some of them had never been in a music school before. Some of them did not know what a piano was. Maya gathered them all in the main room. She knelt down so she could look them in the eyes. "Welcome to Skis," she said. "My name is Maya. I am going to be your teacher." The children looked at her with wide eyes. Some of them were shy. Some of them could not sit still. One little girl was hiding behind her mother's leg. "Before we start," Maya said, "I want to tell you something important, something my mother told me a long time ago." She paused and looked at each child. "Music is not about being perfect," she said. "Music is about being true. When you play, I do not care if you make mistakes. Everyone makes mistakes. What I care about is that you play with your heart, that you feel the music, that you have fun." The children nodded slowly. The little girl peeked out from behind her mother. "Now," Maya said with a smile, "who wants to touch a piano?" 12 hands shot up into the air. That first day was messy and loud and chaotic. Children banged on keys. They pushed wrong notes. They made sounds that were more like noise than music, but they were laughing. They were smiling. They were falling in love with the piano, just as Maya had fallen in love so many years ago. 3 months after the school opened, Maya got on an airplane for the first time in her life. She was going to New York City. She was going to Lincoln Center. The concert hall was enormous. It was the most beautiful place Maya had ever seen. The ceiling was high and covered with gold designs. The chairs were soft and red. The stage was huge, with a grand piano sitting in the center under bright lights. Maya walked onto the stage for the sound check. She stood in the middle and looked out at the empty seats. In a few hours, all of these seats would be filled with people who had come to hear her play. She thought about her mother. She thought about the little apartment where they had lived together. She thought about her dream of playing on a stage like this. "I am here, Mother," Maya whispered. "I finally made it." That night the concert hall was full. Every seat was taken. People had come from all over the country to hear the janitor who had won the Metropolitan Piano Championship. The story had spread everywhere. News stations had covered it. Magazines had written about it. Maya, the woman who taught herself piano in a basement, was now playing at one of the most famous concert halls in the world. Doctor sat in the front row. Next to him were Mr. Johnson and Sarah and the other neighbors from Maya's building. Behind them were the 12 children from Skis, dressed in their best clothes, looking around with wonder in their eyes. Maya walked onto the stage. She was not wearing expensive clothes or fancy jewelry. She wore a simple black dress that she had bought at a thrift store. Her shoes were comfortable. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. She looked exactly like who she was: a janitor, a teacher, a daughter who loved her mother. She sat down at the piano. The audience was silent. Maya closed her eyes for a moment. She thought about the promise she had made. She thought about all the years of playing in the dark alone. Then she opened her eyes and began to play. The music filled the hall. It rose up to the golden ceiling and flowed out into the night. It was the same music she had played in the competition, Chopin's Ballade No. 1 in G minor, but it was also different. It was fuller now. It was richer. It had new layers of joy and hope that had not been there before. Because Maya was different now. She was no longer alone. She had friends. She had students. She had a purpose. The loneliness that had once filled her music had been replaced by something brighter. When the last note faded away, the audience erupted. The applause was deafening. People stood and cheered. Some of them cried. In the front row, the children from Skis clapped their small hands as hard as they could. Maya stood and took a bow. She looked at the audience with tears in her eyes. "Thank you," she said into the microphone, "but I am not the only one who deserves this applause." She gestured to the front row. "These children are my students. They are the future. Tonight I played for them, and I want to make them a promise, the same promise my mother made to me." She looked at the 12 young faces staring up at her. "I promise to always believe in you. I promise to always teach you with love. And I promise that no matter where you come from, no matter how poor you are, No matter what anyone says about you, you can achieve your dreams. Because music does not care about any of those things. Music only cares that you show up and give it everything you have. The audience applauded again. The children beamed with pride. And somewhere, watching from a place beyond the stars, a woman named smiled. Her daughter had kept her promise. Comment for next part.